Few feel comfortable walking through a cemetery at night. There's something eerie about walking over the graves of those who have passed on to the afterlife, and it's even more unsettling to walk among the spirits who have not. I caught up with a few members of a local paranormal investigation team to tell me about one of these strange experiences. To fully understand this story, we have to go back to the Civil War. A small battle took place in Raleigh, North Carolina between the Union cavalry and the Confederates. After disobeying a ceasefire, a man thought to be Lieutenant Walsh was hanged in the center of town. Walsh was buried in the Oakwood Cemetery in the middle of Raleigh along with many other soldiers. Deb and Kristen, two members of the paranormal investigation team, frequent the cemetery searching for signs of the non-living. But when news reporter Steve Spragio asked to come along with them to film a Halloween special on the cemetery, something happened that they never could have predicted.
I was telling them little tidbits about the cemetery that I can remember. And I told them about Lieutenant Walsh, who was a Texas cavalryman. And when the Union Army came into Raleigh, he fired off his pistol. And I guess the Union soldiers went after him and they captured him, and I believe they hung him over on Bloodworth Avenue. And I said, he's buried in the cemetery.
Spragio listened to the story of Lieutenant Walsh, and while it was an interesting historical anecdote, he hardly made note of the tidbit. The reporter had no idea of the close encounter he would allegedly have with the lieutenant just moments later. As Spragio came upon Walsh's grave, he and his team began to notice a few suspicious things happening.
Everybody had cameras and devices and so forth. The batteries on their cameras were failing. Everything was not working right.
Deb and Chris from the investigation team told me that it's not uncommon for entities to suck the power out of equipment or cause technical difficulties, but that wasn't the only peculiar sign.
Some of the team members were seeing temperature changes with their thermometers in the area.
Another indication of a paranormal presence is a sudden drop or rise in temperature, and that's when things got a little more physical.
And all of a sudden, I felt like this bug bite on my really sharp bug bite on something on my neck. I thought it was like a bug bite. It was a sharp pain.
He was basically behind me, and I heard him go, ow, something like I got bit or I got scratched or something like that. And then he says, "Did you see something on my neck?"
The investigators at the site did in fact see a mark on Spragio's neck, but it didn't appear to be a bug bite like he'd suspected.
And one of the team members came over and said, "Holy cow, look at that." And they shined the flashlight on my neck, and there was this big, red mark.
It was more of a thin red mark that ran from the bottom of his ear to the back of his neck. In days following the cemetery visit, the paranormal investigative team had a new theory.
A day or two later, I called him back, and I said, Steve, I was looking at the pictures. I don't think that's a scratch. It could be a rope burn.
A rope burn, just like the one that Lieutenant Walsh would have received while being hanged just blocks away.
So he goes, yeah, you're right. It would be right. He said it would be right there where this scratch was, where you've got hung. That's where you would have the mark.
It was very, very weird what happened. And after that, I said, hey, maybe there is something to it.
The experience had turned Spragio from a skeptic to a believer. Even after the team had left the cemetery, it seemed that Walsh wasn't quite finished with the reporter.
Flash forward a little bit. I went to my boss. She was assigned to approve my script. When she tried to print the script out on the printer in her office, smoke started to come out of the printer.
Spragio watched as the office filled with smoke, and he began to think that this wasn't just a coincidence.
She said, this printer's broken. I can't believe this printer's broken. So she went to try and print another document in there. The document printed.
The printer malfunctioned when Spragio tried printing off his story, and yet it worked just fine when printing off other documents. It was at this moment that Spragio realized that Walsh may have been trying to prevent him from running the story. No one can explain what took place at the cemetery that night, or the strange happenings that took place thereafter. Perhaps this was just a collection of coincidences. It's possible that the series of events were completely unrelated, or maybe Walsh was behind it all. Believe what you want, but as for Sbraccio and the team of paranormal investigators, they suspect that the lieutenant continues to walk the Oakwood Cemetery, protecting his ground and haunting intruders.